everybody, welcome to Tikiyaki TV. I'm your host Jim Bakke from the Tikiyaki Orchestra, and we are going to talk about a very special record today that's celebrating its 60th birthday. Well, it did, passed April 19th of this year. This record turned 60. 1965, easily one of the most iconic album covers. Obviously, we all know the cover. We've all had our thoughts and feelings about this album cover. For me personally, this was the first record I ever, as a child, took by myself and put on the record player. My parents, very similar colored console stereo. It was an antique green stereo, Zenith, I believe. And they had this record, and the record we are talking about is Whipped Cream and Other Delights by Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, of course. Comes out in 1965. I would put this record on and put A Taste of Honey on with that bass drum intro. Bum, 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 da 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 ba ba. And I would just pick that up and play it and play it and play it. Sometimes I would, get lazy and go in the kitchen and get a snack, and the other songs would come on. And what a selection of songs this record has. So A Taste of Honey, of course, Green Peppers, one of my absolute faves. Tangerine, a great slower song. Bittersweet Samba, another super cool upbeat great samba tune. Lemon Tree, Whipped Cream, of course, one of the three songs used in the dating game, which a lot of people know. His version of Love Potion number 9, very striptease, done in a very striptease way. El Garbanzo, very much the mariachi style that started the Tijuana Brass. Ladyfingers, which recently has become a streaming hit, and apparently has been streamed over 3 billion times now from some TikTok ad. I guess people started using it, so he's enjoying the massive success this record had back in the 60s when it came out. Again, with the Ladyfingers, a song called Butterball, Peanuts, a very mariachi influenced song, and Lollipops and Roses, which again was another song they used, I believe, on, I think they used it on the dating game. I know it was in the Dogtown and Z-Boys documentary also. Really cool. This record is his fourth record, and started to see the Tijuana Brass. It started really as a mariachi / influenced pop group to going more in the pop direction, and still with the mariachi influence, but more lounge pop. And it is an absolute stone cold classic. You guys all know this record, probably the most found record in any thrift store anywhere. You used to be able, I don't know about now, but used to be able to go in and find that record in every pile. I think people just started buying them up because, it was so popular. But in the 1960s, when I was a young child, very young, my parents and everyone else had this record. I think the sales for this record were 6 million at this point, which is a crazy amount of records. And I know subsequently came out in 1965, immediately charted, and spent 141 weeks on the top 40 and 61 weeks in the top 10. And that's in 1965 to 1966. Apparently, in the spring and summer of 1966, and this is all according to Wikipedia, the record had a high watermark of popularity. For the week ending May 21st, 1966, Whipped Cream and Other Delights was at number 8, and was one of 5 Tijuana Brass albums listed in the top 20 Billboard magazine charts of top LPs. The others were What Now My Love, Going Places South of the Border, and The Lonely Bull. So he had 5 records in the top 20 in 1966. Needless to say, I think at that time he was kind of bigger than the Beatles. and rightfully so. These all of these records were chock full of great songs. We're just going to talk about this one today because it is just past its 60th birthday. And I don't know if you know, Herb is out at 90 years old. He turned 90 on March 31st. So he was born March 31st, 1965. He turned 90 and has a new version of the Tijuana Brass and is performing all over the country. I saw it in Las Vegas in June. He turned 90 at Lincoln Center Jazz in New York doing a show. And I got to tell you, it was the only description I could use for the show was magical when I saw it. I had about sixth row. I was right there. I have second row for the LA show coming up in November. And, you know, it was constant goosebumps. He told amazing stories. One story about the cover of the record and how one fan had come up to him and said, I love that record, you know, that cover, you know. And he asked Herb asked him about the music, and he said, well, I haven't gotten to listening to that yet, but he loved the cover. And he said that the cover model, Dolores Erickson, was 3 months pregnant at the time. And that is not whipped cream, it's actually shaving cream. So interesting, fun. He told a lot of really great stories at the show. Played for 2 hours, 90 years old. Came shuffling out the beginning. They started with Lonely Bull. He came dancing out. If you can see the videos on YouTube, it's really quite amazing that a 90-year-old guy is that agile and, you know, play the trumpet. Trumpet's a lot of breathing in and out. You got to be in shape to play the trumpet, let alone a 2-hour show and be 90 years old. So I think he's kind of superhuman for that alone, let alone all the other amazing accomplishments he had in his career with A&M Records, all those giant selling records on A&M. But we are talking about this album, the Tijuana Brass, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. Also, this record was the first record where he started using, I believe, I'm not really sure if he put together an actual Tijuana Brass after the record was recorded, but a lot of the members that became members of the Tijuana Brass recorded on this record, but he also had, and as he did for the previous records, he had what became the Wrecking Crew, you know, people playing on there, most notably Hal Blaine, the world's most recorded drummer and amazing drummer, Carol Kay, Leon Russell played on here, Chuck Berghofer, he was the other Wrecking Crew. So there are 4 Wrecking Crew people on this record. The other people playing on this record, guitar, John Pisano, piano, besides Leon Russell, Lou Pagani, Hal Blaine, Nick Ciroli on drums, Chuck Berghofer on bass, and Pat Senatori on bass, and that's double bass, stand-up bass. Trombone, Bob Edmondson, trumpet, Herb, of course, and Tawny Kalash. So the thing I found most entertaining when I watched the old Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass videos and look at the names, there's like 4 Italians in his band. So he had a lot of Italians in the group. John Pisano, Nick Ciroli, Pat Senatori, and Lou Pagani. So there's four Italian guys in the group, which I for me is kind of a little bit of pride there because I'm Italian. But this is the first group that there actually was an actual Tijuana Brass. Before, it was all him playing trumpet and studio musicians, you know, Hal Blaine and those people. So it's kind of a first group effort, and then the subsequent records after that all were Tijuana Brass players, and they were a great band. They really, when you watch the TV performances and some of the live performances, they were really incredible band. John Pisano was a shredding guitar player. If you've ever watched their performance of the Holy of Zorba the Greek on 12-string, absolutely shredding, fast. You know, the band was completely on their game. Just incredible to watch them. Oh, and I forgot to mention Julius Wechter. He deserves a special mention. He played the marimba and the vibraphone and was in the Tijuana Brass, but was also in the Wrecking Crew. and also wrote some of their greatest songs, most notably Spanish Flea, which is the dating game song, and was a member of the Wrecking Crew after that. But before that, was the replacement for Arthur Lyman in Martin Denny's group. When Martin Denny first started in 1957, Arthur Lyman was his vibraphone player for like a year on a couple of records, maybe. And then Arthur Lyman left and went solo, and Julius Wechter got the job, and he flew in from Los Angeles to Honolulu and then toured all over and was in the Martin Denny. So the bridge between Exotica and this is what I'm calling post-Exotica or lounge. It's almost like Exotica, but in a different Exotic locale. So Exotica was kind of based in Hawaii and brought in a lot of Asian and Latin influence. But, the Tijuana Brass was all about, Mexico and Latino Spanish and Mexican style music, mariachi, trumpets and all of that. So it's kind of like the 60s version of Exotica. And for me personally, for the Tikiyaki Orchestra, this is a huge influence on, this songwriting and song structure, very pop, very melodic, very catchy. Huge influence on the way I write songs, because a lot of the traditional Exotica wasn't very song-oriented. It was more sometimes soundscapey, or they would take a, Broadway show tune or something and kind of give it this sort of bizarre, exotic touch with a lot of percussion. And this record is just, the songs are straightforward, verse, choruses, great bridge parts, very structured, very catchy, very melodic, super musical. And that is, I think this is probably one of the records that really informed myself as a musician and a songwriter. Probably one of my first influences, the Banana Splits, the Monkees, the Beatles, and my sister's 45s, which were everything from Wipeout to Windy by the Association, Monkees records, Beatles records, everything. So as a kid in the 60s, I would listen to my older sister's records, the 45s. But this is the first album I think I just took out myself and put on a stereo and dropped the needle on it, and there it is, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. And I would listen to, A Taste of Honey on repeat. I would just keep picking up the needle and playing it back, and eventually getting into the rest of the songs. Another noteworthy person on this record, which I think he gets no credit when people talk about Herb Alpert, and it's probably because he wasn't in the group or anything, is a guy who wrote a lot of his big songs, and that guy's name is Saul Lake. Don't know anything about him. If I ever met Herb, that would be one of my questions to him would be, tell me about Saul Lake, because he wrote Bittersweet Samba, he wrote Green Peppers, two of my favorites on this record. I think he wrote El Garbanzo, but songs on all the other records, this like always 2 or 3 or 4 Saul Lake songs, and they're always my favorite ones. They're always, to me, the best ones. Oddly enough, none of these Tijuana Brass records have songs written by Herb, which I again, if I ever met him and talked to him, I'd be like, you're a songwriter, you must be a songwriter. So amazingly musical, and obviously did all the arranging and producing, and the arrangements are sometimes almost song rewrites in themselves, but it surprised me that none of these songs are written by Herb Alpert. Like, these song credits go like this on this record. Taste of Honey was Bobby Scott, Rick Marlowe. That's an old jazz or a crooner standard, I think. Green Peppers, Saul Lake, Tangerine, Johnny Mercer and Victor Schertzinger. Bittersweet Samba, Saul Lake. Lemon Tree, Will Holt. Whipped Cream, Naomi Nelville. Don't know anything about her, but now I want to look her up. Love Potion number 9 is a Lieber and Stoller song, famous songwriters. Ladyfingers, Toots Thielmans. No idea who that is. Butterball, Mike Henderson, Peanuts, Luis Guerrero, and Lollipops and Roses, I think, is an old jazz standard, and that's Tony Valona. Yeah, but Salt Lake, if you go further, and I'm going to do deeper dives into the other Herb records, because records like SRO and Beat of the Brass and What Now My Love are all incredible records. And Salt Lake always had songs in there, as did Julius Wechter too. And eventually Julius Wechter left and did the Baja Marimba Band, and then just a career as the Wrecking Crew. Super unsung hero, that Julius Wechter guy. He was a percussionist, but a mallet player, played, vibes and marimba. It was mostly marimba in the Tijuana Brass, but there are definitely vibraphone on these songs. And yeah, this record is just so iconic, and probably the most popular record of the 60s that wasn't a Beatle record or Rolling Stones. I think at some point in the mid-60s, the Tijuana Brass was far more popular than the Beatles. They had television shows. He eventually, I'm sure it was with the success of this record that he bought A&M Studios, because after that you started seeing the TV specials from A&M. Amazingly, when I lived in Hollywood for 7 years, when I moved to Hollywood, I lived like 3 blocks from A&M. So I would drive by it every day. And when one of my old band Fuzzbubble was doing our record, our producer said, I want to do some rough mixes at A&M because they have a board in there I want to try. So I actually got to go into A&M and work. And this is fun because I live 3 blocks away, so I could walk to it, but I'm like, no, I'm driving through those gates with my crappy Ford Escort. I'm going to drive through those gates and park my car at the A&M lot, and I did every day. I would drive up and go through the gates and go in the lot, and amazingly, at that time, so this is 1998, maybe, in the other rooms in the studio were the following. Across the hall from us, Chicago. Next to them, across the hall, Ringo Starr was doing his record Time Takes Time with Mark Hudson. He had Alanis Morissette, all these guests, and I remember sneaking into the studio and seeing his production chart, which is basically you have a list of all the songs and a list of all the instruments or people that are playing on the record, and you X them off as you get them done. But they were cutting out magazine pictures, so I saw like Alanis Morissette and all of these amazing people on that production chart. And myself and my singer waited in the hallway because we were hoping to meet a Ringo. And sure enough, he came walking through with Mark Hudson, and we said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Very well, thank you," in that Ringo Starr voice. And we were giddy like schoolgirls because we were huge Beatle fanatics. But and then again, that's 3 studios. That's us, Chicago. We met the bass player, Jason Sheff, very nice guy. Ringo Starr, and then around the corner, the first time Black Sabbath did a reunion, it was 1998. They were recording there. I didn't see them there. I wish I'd had, but they were not there when we were there. They just had the studio locked out. So that's my A&M story. But in closing, Whipped Cream and Other Delights, 60 years old this year, and if you look up, and I highly advise you, if Herb and the Tijuana Brass are coming near you to play, buy the tickets, go to the show. It was like 2 hours. He told amazing stories. The band sounded perfect. He has an amazing band, and I highly recommend seeing the show. Like I said, I'm super excited. I got second row center for the LA show, so I am stoked. And yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing in November. Herb Alpert, Tijuana Brass, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. There's the back. There's the amazing iconic cover. And yeah, if you haven't listened to this record, revisit it. It's fantastic. I'm going to be doing more on Herb, other records on the show. But for now, thank you for checking this out, and like and subscribe. And Herb Alpert, Tijuana Brass, happy 60th birthday, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. This is Jim for Tikiyaki TV. Aloha.